Hello and welcome to Power Stuff. I'm Mark Nanaman, and today we're going to talk about how to patch a lookup column with an automated plugin in the Dataverse Accelerator app. And so let's just hop right over and dive into our Dataverse Accelerator app. This is a new thing. It says the features are in preview. Keep that in mind. So don't use this in production. The really cool thing about this, when you boil it down, what you've got is these things called low-code plugins. And you can use your PowerFX formula that you're familiar with from like a Canvas app, or maybe PowerFX formula columns if you're familiar with those. You can use those same PowerFX formulas in these plugins to do a lot of really cool stuff. You can make an instant plugin, and you can actually call an instant plugin from a Power Automate flow. You can pass inputs into an instant plugin from a Power Automate flow run and get an output back. So if there are things you can think of that you can do with PowerFX formula, like certain math functions, certain string manipulation functions that you can do with PowerFX formulas that you can't do with the native expressions in Power Automate, well, you can use an instant plugin to handle that. You've also got these automated plugins, which are triggered by creation, update, or delete of a record in Dataverse. And you can run PowerFX formula code off of those events with an automated plugin. And so that way you can accomplish things. You can write out and accomplish an operation in the background much quicker than you could if you were, say, doing it with the Power Automate flow, just because the time it takes to write out an action in PowerFX formula to do that same sequence of events or that same operation in a Power Automate flow could take much, much longer. Like it could be 10 minutes versus 30 seconds, basically. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at creating an automated plugin to patch a lookup column. Now, the reason I'm making the video is I ran into some issues and I looked around online and couldn't find an answer, but I did see that other people had this issue. So we're going to look at how to actually get a lookup column to be populated or set or patched via an automated plugin in the Dataverse Accelerator app. So I'm just going to hop right in and create a new automated plugin. And now I've got this custom table I threw together called plugin demo. And all that table is, it's got a name column. It's got what I call state string column, and state, I mean a US state, like the geographical administrative unit. And then it's got a state lookup column, because in my database, I've got a table for states, and I got a table for cities, and I've got all kinds of census data on those records. And the use case I'm envisioning here, it's from real projects, multiple projects I've worked on in the past, where we've gotten these lists of data. Usually it's lists, and usually it's in like a CSV format, and they're kind of sloppy, but they've got location data. And it's for certain business needs. And a lot of times they come from people who just aren't you can't ask them to format the data differently because they're third-party vendors or something like that. And we want to take that location data and we want to filter those lists to see like which ones do we give a higher priority to and which ones do we give a lower priority to. And we can base that off of like historical data we've had around those locations, or populate certain demographics or median income, whatever. So we want to pull in other data to help prioritize and filter that list. And so what we need to do is we need to parse out real locations for that kind of sloppy location data in those lists. And by sloppy, I mean sometimes it'll be city, state, sometimes it'll be city, state abbreviation, sometimes it'll be near this city in this state, and there's no like comma. So things like that, or I've built flows in the past to handle it, and the flow tries to parse out the state from the string and find it, and when it finds it, it patches an update. But it'd be much simpler and quicker to write that out in PowerFX formula and save it here in an automated plugin and just have it run automatically in the background. And then we also don't run into throttling issues if you've got, a significant amount of data you're trying to process. But there are a few hiccups, and we're going to go over those hiccups now. So I'm just going to get started here. I'm going to say video plugin demo test, whatever. And we've got our custom table already set right there. And we want it to run on creation. That makes the most sense. Also, it totally sidesteps and avoids the issue of an infinite loop, which you could run into if you're doing it. If you're taking the record, if the record is triggered by the update and then you update it again, you can run into an infinite loop. So you don't want to do that. So we're doing it off creation. And then down here, I'm just going to demo what I was saying earlier about how quickly you can accomplish these sorts of things with PowerFX formula. So all I'd have to do, if I was in a Canvas app, all I'd have to do is say patch, and then I got to reference our table. So that's going to be plugin demos. And then we need to reference the record we're on. Here in the Dataverse Accelerator app, you reference your record by saying new record. If I was on deleted, I think it would be old record, but we do new record here. And then we do our update. And I want it to be state lookup. And then I'm going to do lookup states state name equals new record state string. All right. So that's how I would do this, like if I was in a Canvas app, that's how I'd do this. However, we get this weird error. We get a red squiggly. Patch function cannot be used with new record or old record as a second argument. I don't know why, but that's the way it is. It tells us use set new record dot field name, comma, new value instead. In some of the reading I've done, I think that's a way that you avoid infinite loops if you're running off an update. If you use that set function the way they have it, that avoids the triggering another update, is why I believe they say that. However, if we follow that instruction, we get another error, and I'll just show that now. So set new record state lookup Okay, so now we've got this operation rewritten the way it wants us to. The set new record dot the field name or column name, and then our new value. But we get a new error message. This is the second hiccup I was talking about. So if we hover over this red squigglies, we see this record cannot be copied. Instead, create an inline record using squiggly bracket notation to copy the individual fields desired. Well, that, when I first saw that, made me scratch my head a bit. I tried a few things, nothing worked. I Googled that exact error message, also basically turned up empty. I just saw other people having this problem and nothing seemed to work. The solution, though, which makes sense when you think about it, turned out to be using the with function. And the reason it makes sense is the with function it creates inline records. What you put here in between your squiggly brackets at the start of a with function, those are inline records. So let's just do that. V new record, and I'll just put new record here. So we're saving our new record as an inline record. And then another thing you got to do is you do have to save the state lookup, your lookup record inline as well. So V lookup is what I'll call it. There we go. And then what I found is we have to go back to patch, which is ironic because patch told us to do the set, but when we're doing the with, we need to go back to patch. So patch, new record, patch, plugin demos, All right. And this is normal for whatever reason when we do all this editing here in this form, it gets the errors linger or persist for some reason. So if this happens to you, if you've done a lot of editing and you get these errors that still persist, what you got to do, unfortunately, is select it all. This is the last hiccup. You got to select it all, hit copy, and then you just got to refresh or hit back and come back in. But I find sometimes I got to just hit the refresh. All right, I hit the refresh. Let's go back in to create automated plugin. I've got my code saved as a copy. All right, so we're starting all the way over from scratch. Let's say video demo plugin. And here I'm going to look up my demo. There we go, plugin demo. And I'm just going to paste in my code. All right. Oh, I found an error still because I'm calling it new record. I need to do v new record, right? All right, there we go. So now we're good. Finally, we need to just save this. So we go down to advanced options. When do we want it to run? Do we want it to run at the beginning of the operation, before the operation, or after the operation? We're going to do before. And I'm going to throw it into a solution. It's a good idea to have a solution ready, created before you start this so that it'll show up here in the list and you've got a place to save this and find it easily inside solutions. Okay, so I'm going to hit save. The moment of truth, is it going to save? Plugin successfully saved. All right, finally, we're just going to do a test on this really quickly. So here I am in my model-driven app that I made where I threw in this table, plugin demos. I'm going to hit new, and I'm just going to say test. And let's pick a state at random. What do we want to do? Let's do West Virginia. I'm going to hit save, and it's going to spin, and then when it finishes saving, it should have West Virginia in the lookup column. Let's see if it works. Boom, it worked. It found West Virginia on my states table, and it put it in there. If I click on West Virginia, it'll pull up the West Virginia record, and it'll show me whatever data I've chosen to display from West Virginia. So I think that's a really cool feature here. Obviously, this is just bare bones and simple. There's a lot more you'd want to do with your formula there. You want to introduce error handling. You also, for this specific case, I need to introduce things where I'm searching for a direct straight up match, name match, but I also need to look for an abbreviation match. I need to do things like trim and proper case formatting of the string. All kinds of things like that you need to do. And I'll do another video on a more elaborate process I've done with based off of what I've shown you here. I've done one where I take very sloppy data that sometimes has spelling errors, and the plugin will fail on those. But when it fails, it'll update the record in such a way, it'll update a choice option set column in such a way that it'll trigger a Power Automate flow. And that Power Automate flow will take the string and do a GPT action on it. And the GPT will have a prompt to find the city and state in this location string that may contain spelling errors. And that, with a very high degree of accuracy, will find city-state matches from really badly formatted location strings. So anyway, that was how you patch a lookup column using a low-code automated plugin in the Dataverse Accelerator app. Thank you so much for watching.